So now I would like to invite our next speaker, Stephanie Hall, who is a project manager at the National Trust, currently managing projects at Ickworth House and Blickling Hall. Stephanie undertook a building surveying degree at Nottingham Trent University before joining the EC Harris LLP in 2008. Also, she did a course on ecclesiastical insurance scholarship. So we're very pleased and anticipated the presentation.
Hi, thank you very much for having me today. So today I wanted to talk to you about why I chose the MSc in Sustainable Heritage and the benefits that it's had to me, but also a little bit about my dissertation subject, which was interdisciplinary collaboration. So first of all, a little bit about me. Kelly obviously covered a little bit of it already. But after doing my building surveying degree, I became a building surveyor commercially for EC Harris in the North East. And it was there that I started to get a little bit of limited experience working on heritage assets. And that really whetted my appetite for wanting to specialise in that sector. And led to me applying for a role with the National Trust and gaining a job in the East Midlands Region as a building surveyor, doing both operational and project work for the Lincolnshire portfolio. Shortly after joining the Trust, I then became chartered, and it was after this point that I then was looking for my next challenge and started to look at potential degrees to do, and essentially chose UCL. And the reason why I chose this degree was, first of all, it's quite unique in terms of its approach to looking at sustainability and heritage. And in terms of the sustainability, not only the environmental impacts on heritage, but also social and economic sustainability as well. And I also really like the fact that you can gain practical skills working on real-life projects, not only in Malta, which was a really great module to do, but also on a case study property in third module as well. And most importantly for me was the fact that the MSc really advocated the interdisciplinary approach, not only in what the course content covers, but also the variety of students that are attracted to the course. And for me that was important because, as Ickworth say, the very practice of conservation is interdisciplinary, and working in the National Trust, that's very much the approach that we have. So I've just got a couple of examples of work that I've done and the approach that we've had. So first of all, a very simple project. This was converting a residential dwelling into a village hall. So this actually, all of the projects all linked to sustainability as well. Social, this one, nice village hall for a local community. And this one had quite a small project team. Myself as building surveyor doing the design, and then we also drew upon curatorial support in terms of presenting the building, and then also raw survey support because of the village hall aspect and creating community use schemes for the property. A slightly bigger example. This building isn't listed, but it is within the curtilage of a Grade 1 listed building, and it was used for the storage of reserve collection, and we turned it into a cafe and indoor play area. And interestingly, here we had quite a few more specialists involved. We had to draw upon the support of our conservator for the reserve collection, but also we had a carriage hearse which required specialist removal. So we then had to get more specialists in. And then also, because of the commercial aspects of the project, we then had to draw upon our commercial colleagues, so catering consultants, communications consultants, to make sure that we were marketing the new development. And then a final example, this is one of my current projects. So this is providing a lake source heat pump to serve heating to the hall and west wing. And this is quite surprising, the number of consultants that I'm having to draw upon. For the trenching from the lake to the hall, we've had to consult with the archaeologist. Then we've also had to consult with the forestry advisor in terms of tree root protection zones, and our ecologist because of the potential ecological impacts of introducing a lake source array to the site. So as you can see, I'm quite interested in interdisciplinary collaboration, and it led to me starting to develop it into a research question for my dissertation. And this was because I felt that it was quite largely unexplored in terms of heritage itself. And now, particularly within the Trust, and the fact that we have to operate commercially as heritage tourism attractions to make sure that we can do the conservation work that we want to do, there's that increasing push to collaborate with not only conservation colleagues, but also the commercial colleagues as well. So my research question was how effective is interdisciplinary collaboration in the historic environment, and I wanted to work towards a framework for collaboration. So I employed a varied methodology. I used some self-reflexivity, drawing upon my own experiences, and then also did contextual research through a literature review. And because of the limited research in collaboration in terms of heritage assets, I did also look more widely than that and drew upon a lot of research from social and healthcare backgrounds as well. I used the National Trust as a case study and undertook interviews and an electronic survey to support my report. So first of all, what is interdisciplinary collaboration? It's defined by Bergwager as an interpersonal process through which members of different disciplines contribute to a common product or goal. And why collaborate? From the wider literature review, Bronstein suggested that it facilitates the achievement of goals and also that it enables those collaborators to spend their time doing what each knows and does best. And what makes it successful? This is where I really had to draw quite heavily upon health and social care for this element of the research. And the most widely accepted discussions came from Bronstein and Petrie. And Bronstein had developed a components of interdisciplinary collaboration model, and she felt that all of those components had to be present in order for successful collaboration to occur. So drawing on a couple of examples, she felt that collective ownership of goals was really important to ensure that all team members were working towards the same goals. And she also felt there were also influences that also helped facilitate that interdisciplinary working. So that includes history of collaboration and also professional role. Petrie had quite a few similarities. She didn't have a model, but a lot of her attributes and attestants are quite similar to those identified by Bronstein. So, for example, a problem-focused process, and also sharing links quite heavily with the collectivation of goals. Then drawing upon research from heritage tourism, one author had stated that there was a risk that conservationists perceive heritage tourism as compromising conservation goals for profit. And that really does say why we need to collaborate, because in collaborating with the conservation and commercial functions, you can make sure that there's a collective sense of responsibility to make sure that heritage attractions are being developed sustainably and also managed in that way as well. So following the literature review, I then undertook interviews and did this with 13 employees of the National Trust, all from different backgrounds. So this was from conservation, commercial functions, and also operational functions as well, in order to gain the opinions of the general managers and also project sponsors. And the reason why I felt that the National Trust would be a good case study was because when I joined the National Trust, we were actually organised into single discipline teams. So I joined a team of 7 building surveyors. And shortly after I joined, the National Trust went through its going local strategy and went through a restructure which resulted in the National Trust consultancy being formed. And it's then been reorganised into interdisciplinary teams. So it was interesting to use this case study to find out what experiences of those interviewed were from both the single professional working and that interdisciplinary working, and whether this new approach was successful and whether there were any opportunities to develop interdisciplinary working more within the Trust. So there's just a few findings from the interviews, and there was it generated a lot of discussion with those that I interviewed. A lot of the interviews lasted over an hour because people had a lot to say on the subject. So a lot of these opinions are the kind of general consensus that was found. So they found both advantages and disadvantages. One, that it provides a 360-degree view of an issue, but then others felt that it can slow down the projects. They attributed that to having to juggle people's diaries to get everybody to meeting together, and also potential conflicting views taking more time to work through. It was also identified that there can be a sense of isolation for those professions, not getting their peer support they're used to. However, the general consensus at the end of all of that was that it has helped the success of project delivery in having this new interdisciplinary approach. Not that we didn't do interdisciplinary working before the National Trust consultancy, but we did work a bit more silo working. So to support the findings of the interviews, because it had been quite a small sample, I then did an electronic survey. And this was available for quite a short period of time, and there were 88 surveys that were fully completed. It had 5 key sections, with the first 2 sections mainly to be able to establish that it was the type of person that I wanted to be completing the survey, and to make sure that the results would be relevant to the study. So jumping then ahead to the project delivery section, I first of all asked respondents what their role was within the trust. So the majority were from conservation backgrounds, only 22% of respondents were from the commercial professions, and then 5% being business partners, so that's finance, operational risk, etc. And all respondents answered that they do interdisciplinary working, whether that's always or sometimes. And I asked whether this was on projects. They all said it was, and their role on projects then varied. So we had a lot of project managers that completed the survey, and that's probably because with my role as at the time a building surveyor, I was able to get the survey sent out to all of the building surveyors within the trust, as well as also some regions as well. And quite interestingly, most respondents thought that they were only sometimes involved in projects at the right time to the right extent. So that really did show that there is some more work for the trust to do in making sure that all consultants are appropriately consulted. So drawing upon the results of the interviews, I'd taken some statements that had recurred quite frequently in the interviews and asked respondents to rate them as to whether they agreed that they were advantages of interdisciplinary working. So it's quite interesting that it enables the project manager to tap into the wealth of knowledge held internally within the organisation, and no strongly disagrees or disagrees, so everybody agreed with that statement. And that was the same also for it results in more rounded and balanced decisions. And then asked respondents to do the same matrix rating system for weaknesses of interdisciplinary collaboration, and as you can see by the results here, opinion was a lot more mixed. There wasn't really that much of a general consensus amongst the statements. Then to help me fulfil part of my research question of modelling collaboration, I then had drawn upon some statements from interviews, but then also the components and influences identified by Bronstein and Petrie, and asked respondents whether they agreed that they were components of interdisciplinary collaboration. And I used Bronstein's term component rather than Petrie's antecedent, just in terms of people's understanding of definitions. So again here, it was interesting that for clearly defined roles and responsibilities, there were no neutral disagreed or strongly agrees. It had very much, strongly disagreed. It had 69% of respondents saying that they strongly agreed, with then a further 30% agreeing. So taking the results of this particular table, I then looked at how I could model collaboration, and I've drawn upon the terms of both Petrie and Bronstein in doing this. And if we start from the outside and work our way in, I've got the 3 statements that received the lowest number of strongly agrees and agrees as being influences. So these don't necessarily need to occur in order for successful collaboration to happen, but it will certainly help and potentially make it more successful. We've then got components which are all interlinked, which would indicate that if one of these components isn't there in the collaborative process, then it may not be successful collaboration. And then finally in the centre, we've got the antecedent of a strong project manager, because without that strong project manager, probably none of the other components or influences will be able to occur, or that their effective project management will certainly influence how successful those components and influences are. So my conclusion of the research was that interdisciplinary collaboration enables the achievement of the complex aims and objectives that could not be realised by a single professional team. And it also found that with the case study of the National Trust, project delivery is now more successful, but there are areas where it needs to be improved. So this included things such as making sure that we're not taking things too slowly. One of the interview respondents has said we can be a little bit self-indulgent and do things a little bit slower. and others felt that sometimes because we all care so passionately about what we do, we try and be involved in elements of the project that we don't actually need to be involved in, so we need to actually stick to our roles and stop interfering. And then finally, another area was just capacity and making sure that we're not trying to achieve too much all at once, and that's something that the Trust has been addressing. We do a lot of capacity planning now. So the survey results also reflected these findings as well. And then I also made some positive steps towards developing a model, but I didn't get the opportunity to start testing it. So that's something that could be done in the future. And finally, after all this, how's the MSc benefited me? I actually ended up asking a colleague about this to say, am I any different? So apparently I now speak the lingo of all the other disciplines, which is good. And I certainly feel that I can understand more what's going on in meetings, and I can actually actively contribute to various discussions of certain project work streams rather than just being listening in. And I think it's definitely broadened my knowledge, and it's also given me quite a bit of career progression. I started the MSc as a building surveyor, and then in my first year, I think, I then got a job as a project manager at the National Trust Renewable Energy Investment Programme, and I'm now kind of starting part-time a new role doing project management again, looking at master planning, which links directly to some elements of the course structure. And that's it, thank you very much.
I think you really highlighted what the course is doing. Thank you very much. And you will all get the sense of flavor of talking to the prospective students in Malta about managing an interdisciplinary team. So thank you very much. Now it's time for questions. And I would appreciate if you introduce yourself, just to remind you. So questions for Steph?
Hi, I'm Janet Babu, student at the Institute of the Institute for Sustainable Heritage. My question is about, you said that the key element for effective collaboration in heritage management is a strong project manager. Could you develop on that? What are the key aspects of being a strong project manager?
I think it's an understanding of what all the project team members can offer. Certainly from a lot of the interviews, that was where a lot of weaknesses occurred, where people don't actually understand the scope of expertise of their colleagues. So a strong project manager that understands what their team is capable of is definitely really important. And I think it's also that kind of chairing of team meetings and making sure that all the collaborators can actually contribute, because another kind of disadvantage from collaboration was that sometimes you get the quite strong voices and extroverts being heard, and the more quiet people might not get their opinion across. So I think it's how you manage the team and manage their skills.
So the sharing meetings we are doing in modern free, exactly.
Yeah.
Another question?
I am Valentina Valentin from UCL. You mentioned, I'm really a strong advocate of interdisciplinary collaboration, but you mentioned that it can lead to isolation. Did you do more research into that and see how it can be dealt with?
Yeah, so I didn't look too much into it. It was a question that came up in interviews. I was asking about what had been the benefit of the single professional working previously. And then I'd also, in the electronic survey, also asked an open-ended question about what the advantages of single professional working was. And it generated a lot of discussion. People kind of took that open question on the electronic survey to have a bit of a rant about it. So I think one person said, are there any advantages? And then there were a lot of people that also saw, that there are advantages to that. And I think certainly for me, when I joined the Trust as a building surveyor, we were a very close-knit team. We all worked very, in the same office, and we all bounced ideas off each other. And when we got reorganised into that interdisciplinary team, we lost that connection. And now I'm not a building surveyor, but that team rarely sees each other, and we don't get that opportunity to bounce ideas, be able to, show a plan, say, come on guys, help me out with this. So that has been lost. but then maybe, you know, we've obviously forged new relationships with our interdisciplinary teams, and I think it's just people being proactive in getting that peer support. Even now as a project manager in the East England region, I still go to the Midlands region and ask one of the building surveyors there for help if I need it. So it's just been active in getting that and people kind of shifting with that change. But I think it still definitely needs a bit more research because, yeah, there are definitely weaknesses to the interdisciplinary approach from that perspective.
Any questions? More questions? Well, thank you very much, Steph. Thank you.